Warning, this podcast was produced by two men who still think that swearing is both big and clever. As a result, it contains quite a lot of it. Therefore, this podcast is not suitable for children, unless they're really fucking cool children.
Hello, it's Krister here. Welcome to another episode of Pop, Collaborate and Listen. Hope you're all well and enjoying the Christmas period. We're currently coming up to Christmas 2022, and coincidentally we have also just finished our kind of season 4, which is our 1993 journey, and we're doing our wrap up of the end of the year to see what our favourite stuff of 1993 was. We've already done our favourite hip hop albums of the year, and we are now releasing a couple of episodes on kind of everything else that we were into at the time. And so this is part 1, where we will be going through kind of the bottom half of both of our top 10 lists and seeing what albums sort of made it into that area. And then part 2 is going to come out in a couple of days' time, and it'll be the top half of both our lists, and therefore the very, very best albums that we thought came out in 93. We did ask all of you listeners to send in your top 10 lists as well, so we can compare what you thought were the best albums compared to what we're about to talk about. And so thank you so much for everyone who did. That's really appreciated. Anyway, let's get into it. This is, like I say, sort of the lower end of our favourite albums of the year. But there's some real crackers in here. I hope you agree with at least some of them. Look out for part 2, like I say, in a couple of days' time, and have a brilliant Christmas and New Year.
Yes, people, Dave Fensom here with another episode of Pop, Collaborate and Listen, joined as always by my very good friend, Mr. Krister Greer.
Hey, everybody.
And this is our end-of-year wrap-up for 1993.
Yes, we are, we're approaching, in real terms, we're approaching Christmas of 2022. Mm-hmm. And therefore, we obviously want to do a wrap-up of something that happened 29 years ago. We're looking that far back.
Yeah.
It's the end of season 4. We've gone through all of the number 1 albums of that year of 1993. We are at the end part where we are now going to talk about some of our kind of our own favourite bits.
And normally, we're quite lucky actually. This is tied up with the end of the year, so we're using this as our staff Christmas party. Yes. We're actually having some beers. We don't normally drink, which you would expect we probably did.
Yeah, if you listen to us, you'd think they must be shit-faced all the time. No, that's us sober.
So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to run through our top 10 albums each, but there's some crossover, so we're not going to talk about the same record twice, obviously.
No, exactly. Yeah, we both did a top 10, and then we compared. And it works out there's about 13 or 14 different albums that we'll be going to go through. Yeah. 13 it is. Also,
we reached out on Twitter. Everyone, our original plan was we thought we'd get a few responses and we'd read out readers' top 10s. We got too many.
We got loads.
Too many to do. If we read them all out, it would be the world's most boring podcast.
Yeah, and you thought, usually this was the world's most boring podcast.
Exactly. We're not going for Guinness Book of World Records.
Right.
So we'll go through our top. Obviously, this doesn't include hip-hop records that came out in 1993 because we did our own top 5 hip-hop records last episode. So if you want to check out that, go ahead. I was going to attempt to try and work out a master list and say where I'd put the hip-hop records. I tried. It was too difficult, so I haven't bothered.
That's fine. But we should point out that that's why there's no hip-hop records in this particular selection. It's not just that we're racist, it's that we'd already done it.
Wow, we've started that there. Okay, lovely. That's what we're doing. Let's
get into it.
No further ado. Let's start at the top of the list.
Well, let's do my number 10 first of all. And it is the Afghan Wigs with their album Gentlemen.
Gentle Ben,
quite, if only. And this... Obviously, I kind of had seen the name of the Afghan Wigs about a little bit before this album came out. It was in all the press. People were really kind of touting them as very cool. One of those hip US bands that you should all be checking out. And I was interested enough. but I didn't check them out before I heard the first single Debonair from this.
Yeah.
Right. That was my first introduction. I know they did a couple of bits before that, but Debonair came out, and I did buy that. And this is what's playing underneath, and I just thought, this is fucking gorgeous. This is good.
It's lovely.
It is. As always, when you talk about the Afghan Wigs, you're talking about a band who are they put out kind of this dark, menacing style of music, that sort of thing. It is something that kind of would creep up on you in an alleyway. That's the sort of style they have. And Greg Dooley, the singer, he's so raw, and sometimes you think, should you be saying these things? No, mate, you've gone a bit too far. He's really visceral in some of the stuff, which is part of the appeal. It's absolutely part of what makes the Afghan Wigs the band they are.
Yeah, I think less that it would sneak up on you in an alleyway, more would sleaze up to you in a nightclub.
Well, yeah, okay, that's very true. Yes.
There's a kind of unedited sex appeal in these records, that kind of sleazy end of rock and roll that everyone in Razorlight thought they were doing in the 2000s and fucking
Jesus
weren't.
Christ.
Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
it's cool. It's nicotine and regret laden music.
Absolutely is.
There's another album in this list a little bit later on that kind of does similar things. But I've always thought the Afghan Wigs were cool as fuck.
Yeah.
This wasn't the album that I got into the Afghan Wigs on, which is probably why it's not on my list.
Fair enough.
I've heard this album a few times and I like it a great deal, but I don't know it well enough for it to make a list in as contentious a year as this is.
I think, well, no, that's fair enough. I think it's a fantastic album. I really do. It's my number 10, so it's not at the, I didn't listen to it over and over in the same way that I did with some of the other stuff that's on the list later on, but I felt it was deserving of a place on the 10,
Sure, I think any opportunity that we can have to shout out the Afghan Wigs is an opportunity we should fucking take, because what a great band.
Yeah, they really are. I remember as well, I don't think it was on this album, but on the press bit for this one, maybe the one after, there was just so many articles in the NME and stuff where Greg Dooley would turn up and the photo shoot would be him with a black eye.
Yeah.
Because he just got into a fight in a bar the night before. He was still hungover, still in his, the stained clothes he fell asleep in. He's by far not a role model, but he's just fucking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those. And we did have a few of you guys, whenever you were sending in your lists and your top 5s and top 10s, this turned up in a couple of them as well. So we had people like Ollie Woodstock. He had them, basically his number 1. He said he can't see past Gentlemen by Afghan Wigs. Daz Greer as well. And no relation to me, as far as I know.
As far as you know.
But, Daz, if you know different, let me know.
Son.
Well, probably not. Let's go probably not. But Daz has the Afghans in his top 10 as well. And, good friend of the podcast, Michael Collins, he's got them smack in the middle of that. That's the sort of band I would expect Michael Collins to be in.
Yeah,
as well.
100%, mate, 100%.
Yeah. So good choices there.
Yeah, solid choice there for number 10, Krista.
Yeah.
My number 10 was Monster Magnet Superjudge. Yeah, so this one was in your list as well,
It
Krista.
was, exactly. I picked this as well. So
Where did you have this one? Number 7?
Number 8, I think.
Number 8. Okay, fair enough. So, yeah, we'll talk about it now. I mean, obviously, we've got a whole episode that talks about this because we were paid to do it by a listener.
Yeah.
We can be bought easily,
Yeah,
cheaply.
anybody wants to. Yeah,
very cheaply.
Definitely have a think about it.
Yeah, I'd say this is the first Monster Magnet album I heard. Not my favourite. It's certainly the one where the gears shift from that really, really psychedelic sound they had on Spine of God into the kind of slightly more bombastic rock and roll.
Sure.
Obviously, I really, really like this record. If you want to hear what we've got to say about it, we've got a whole episode on it. I don't want to kind of labour the point, but I think this is a really, really solid rock album, a great entry into that kind of stoner rock area of the world, throwing back to some of that kind of more 70s like Zeppelin-based groove. Yeah, really, really like this record. It's a great listen. It still holds up today.
It does, and like you say, it's a lovely bridge between Spine of God and, say, Dopes to Infinity or whatever, where I think that's where they really hit their stride for me.
Oh yeah, Dopes to Infinity for me is
that's one of, and Power Trip. Those were the two big ones.
But this is like a perineum.
This is the taint of Magnet.
The taint of Magnet. I think that's one of their later albums.
Fuck me.
That's probably a Frank Zappa record.
That must be, actually.
Yeah.
No, this is really good, and it's just loads of fun to sit down and enjoy, because it's very silly at points. It's talking about aliens, it's talking about the devil and lots of drugs, but that doesn't take away the fact from some of the riffs are just killer.
Yeah, fucking riffs for days, man.
And
Riffs
that's what
for riffs
Magnet
for
do.
days.
That's what they do best.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We should have said actually before, we are going to be putting a playlist together of one song from each of our choices. And so, for example, I'm putting Debonair from the Afghan Mix Gentlemen on. But yeah, so on this one, you've chosen this song that's playing underneath, which is
Twin Earth. Motherfucker.
Yeah, indeed. And because I picked it as well, I'm going to pick a different song. I'm going to pick Evil.
Evil.
I love that was my very, very, very first introduction.
I mean, is this not just the songs that we picked for the playlist when we did the episode?
Well, we didn't do a playlist for that because it was a bonus.
Oh no, you're right, we didn't.
No.
These are songs that would have gone on.
Yes,
there you go.
exactly.
All right, lovely.
So yeah, we'll put the link to the playlist up somewhere, obviously. But yeah, those are our choices for picks of Monster Magnet.
Okay, I don't know. It wasn't a super popular choice by the readers. Darren Hine had it.
Absolutely, Darren,
friend of the show, Darren Hine. Big up, Darren.
Yeah, I expect him to be into a bit of Magnet.
Yeah, I don't think I saw it anywhere else, did we?
I don't think so. I mean, it's very possible that some people who only did us the top 5, maybe it would have been in the top 10. I thought it would have been a couple more.
I mean, I'd imagine it's in our friend Sean's fucking top 10 because he was the person that paid us to do the...
Yeah, but then he was a lazy bastard and didn't send us a list.
Well, that is also true. Yeah. If you listen to this, Sean, I've also messaged you twice about a computer game and you haven't replied.
Such a twat.
Prick. Anyway, actually, I also owe you some money, I've just remembered. So, hey.
You're
right.
Yeah. That was a quick shift back.
It really was. I forgot. I literally just remembered that I need to pay him some money. Right, okay.
So that was your number 10.
That was my number 10.
Right.
So my number 9, we're going next, is Pork Soda by Primus.
Right.
Yeah, hear that bass. Come on.
Yeah, it's unmistakable.
So look, right, this is not many people's favourite Primus album.
Okay.
It's not my favourite Primus album. But I tell you what this is. This is the Primus album that came out whilst I was at the height of my Primus obsession.
Oh, I see, right.
I had a brief Primus obsession. I was going to get a Primus tattoo.
Okay.
I love Primus. Like Frizzle Fry, CCGs, I fucking love those records so much.
Yeah.
This record came out, and again, it's just spiky and weird and funny, and it's just this really brilliant, amazingly executed slice of technical excellence, and it's like a record that shouldn't exist because it's too weird.
It is very weird.
I really, there's some great songs on this. There's like, My Name Is Mud, which was the lead single off of
course,
it.
yep.
Old Diamondback Sturgeon, Mr. Nature Boy, like Mr. Crinkle. This is DMV, which is a brilliant song. It's exactly what you expect from Primus. It's kind of big bass-led, weird songs, and it's just on the cusp of when they started to really prog out a lot.
Okay, yep.
And once you get to the kind of the next few albums, I've started to lose a little bit of interest in Primus. I love them. I still go and see them live, but like, you go from that moment where this is my band, and now it's like, it is other people's bands, and I still like some of their stuff.
Of course, absolutely, yeah.
And so this was like the pivot for that for me. This album came out. I got this on day of release. I had the T-shirt. I listened to this loads. I love this record.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Not on any of our listeners' lists.
This seems to have passed a good few people by. But I suspect, had we, in '92, Caesar Cheese would have been on loads of people's lists. Mm-hmm. But no, nobody's gone for this one.
That's a forgotten record, but it's
Maybe
great.
so.
What did you think of this when you heard it?
I mean, I didn't hear it at the time at all.
Right.
I've only heard this more recently in total. I'd heard My Name Is Mud, because that was on MTV or Beavis and Butthead and that sort of shit.
Yeah.
But no, I hadn't heard the rest of this at all. To me, it sounds like good fun Primus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't have, because I've not listened to it over and over and over, it doesn't have the same impact as Caesar Cheese, for example.
It doesn't, if you're a songs person,
yeah,
it doesn't have the same kind of hooks.
Yeah, it's not got this big sing-along-y ones.
Yeah, but there's some great stuff on here, and when you go and see them live and they break out something from Pork Soda, it's a good moment.
I see.
Yeah.
Good, right. Okay, well, yeah, that's a good choice, mate. That's a good choice. That was your number 9, was that?
So, obviously, we've done Gentleman, which is your number 10.
Yep.
We've done
Monster Magnet,
which was my number 10.
Yep.
We haven't done my number 9 because it appears later in the list. We've done my number 8, which was
Primus.
And now my number 7.
Yep.
And your number
My number 6
is
Sepultura, Chaos AD.
Oh, what a record.
Mate. Now, here's where I came from on this one. Because in 93, I was kind of teetering on getting into the heavier stuff.
Yeah.
But I was still very much coming out of grunge, and that was the harder stuff I really was into. Yes, I did like some Pantera stuff. I liked some of the really... the Black Album, Metallica. I'm good with that. But I wasn't anywhere close to knowing much about the rest of the genre. And when this came out, I was aware of it. I remember a great review of it in the Melody Maker, and it got me interested. But I wasn't, day one going out and seeking it out. I eventually heard the big 2 songs of it enough in the rock clubs that I was going to that I was like, actually, this is banging. And went and investigated further, and it's a terrific album. It's different enough from kind of the thrashier stuff, which I was a bit scared of maybe back then. It had a groove to it. It's, the drums on this band and this album really got me to a different place. So I was thinking this isn't just straight ahead metal. Sure. And so I really enjoy this stuff.
Yeah, man. I mean, look. This for me. Within my circle of friends, there were people that had been into, kind of Sepultura from Arise.
Yeah, of course.
Beneath the Remains. I'd not really listened to those records at that time. I kind of knew Sepultura as a thrash band. This record came out, blew my fucking mind. It's like riffs, vocals, and the rhythms, the different. This is the thing. It's the groove in here. It's the pace changes. It's those kind of tribal rhythms that you got in here. The weird kind of compound rolls that are all over it. Just, it's like this is something else. This doesn't sound like what's come before it, because it's not groove metal, it's not Pantera, it's not thrash metal, but there's all kinds of other elements in here. There's the punk element that's in here as well. From the first time you get that heartbeat at the start of Refuse Resist, you're like, boom, with that pulsing, and then you're in. That compound roll at the start of Territory. Do you know what I mean? Where it's just fucking rolling all over those toms.
Gorgeous,
man. But then you got the more punky stuff. Like they've got the cover of The Hunt on here by New Model Army.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Which is a song about like vigilante justice, which was just like I heard this, I was like, fucking mind was blown by it. I love that. Played that over and over again. Then you got Biotech is Godzilla. You got these big monolithic, just slabs and slabs of big riffs, big rhythm guitar, and then just like the rhythm. As with everything that I really love in rock and metal, the rhythm section is just exceptional.
Killer.
Holds it apart. Killer. This is the thing, Sepultura went from being a good thrash band to being a band that, had they managed to do another 3 albums or 4 albums instead of this and the next one before separating with Max Cavalera,
absolutely,
they, I'm sure, would have gone on to be festival headliners. They would have been,
oh god, yeah,
they would have been, like Slipknot kind of level of big. They, like when we went to see Cavalera Conspiracy at Download, and they were playing these songs.
One
it was
of my
just like
favourite memories of Download. Yeah,
man,
in the car park.
That weird year they had it on a car park.
Concrete car park. Yeah,
people just going over and like landing on their head. Horrible, man.
But you're right, exactly. We were watching Cavalera Conspiracy, and it was good. But then, for anyone who doesn't know, Cavalera Conspiracy were kind of the band that Max Cavalera went into after this and did.
Well, I mean, he did Soulfly after this, and and Igor stayed in Sepultura for quite a while, and then Igor left Sepultura. They kind of like reconciled with each other, and they started doing Cavalera Conspiracy.
Sure. So, but they were doing most of their own stuff, but then they kind of finished off with a couple of the big Sepultura songs, and the crowd went apeshit. Yeah. Obviously, the crowd just went mental.
Yeah, and they went from this into Roots, which was kind of almost like a prototypical new metal album produced by Ross Robinson. I don't think they ever got better than this record. This is to me Sepultura distilled. I love it, man. I love this record. I think it's great from start to finish. The fact that it's only like 6 on my list or 7 on my list, whatever the fuck it is in there, is just testament to how good this year is for music.
Right, sure, yeah, for sure. I also, just in terms of Igor Cavalera being the drummer that he is, I love the fact that this is where I know him from, and this is what he did for years and years and years. But he turned up in about 5 years ago with Soulwax. He teamed up because they wanted someone who was just a fucking killer drummer. They toured with 3 drummers, and he was one of them. And you watch some of that stuff, and it's amazing.
dude has got a flair, man.
Yeah.
You know, this is the thing. I mean, you know, whatever else metal produces, you cannot fault the quality of the drummers.
Well, there you are. Yeah. And so on the playlist, you're going to put in Territory, which is the one we just heard there. And I'm going to put in Refuse Resist because it's just too good not to.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough.
They're
man.
the two big ones for me.
I mean, I was very tempted to do The Hunt, to be honest with you, as a slightly lesser heard one.
Sure.
But, you know, it's a cover, so I thought, well, maybe not.
Fine. All right. So we both had that one in our list, and we had a couple of the listeners as well who included it in there. So we have Cliff from the Carolina Brunswick in Brighton, the kind of the rock pub where Dave does some of his comedy stuff sometimes.
Yeah, we love big up to Cliff.
Yeah, he's got it in his list. And Dave Raw Power Roddy, of course, he's got Sepultura.
Raw power.
Raw Power Roddy.
Raw paw.
Raw Power.
Raw paw.
Yeah.
That just sounds like he's wanked so much his hand hurts. Raw paw. Oh, David Roddy, why have you got such a raw paw?
And who's got the drag race? Raw Paw's drag race.
Raw paw's drag. And I can't say that without that sounded like I was going to be doing the voice.
Oh, I see. Oh,
I'm
God,
not doing that.
You should say as well, Dave Raw Paw Roddy, bless you. You know, he's got some crackers in his list, but it does descend into stuff like The Almighty and Poison.
I mean, mate, if we'd have given him a top 20, there'd have been a Skin record in there.
You know it, but well done, man, for getting in it. He also did say that, because Raw Paw Roddy, you know, this is what he does. He's got Lenny Kravitz, he's got The Almighty, he's got Poison, he's got Anthrax, he's got Sepultura. But he does say that he had a couple of records that he really liked at the time, but he couldn't tell his metal friends, which is Paul Weller and Sting. He couldn't admit to it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still hesitate to mention that to anyone now.
Too late now, Dave Raw Paw Roddy. It's all over the internet.
Raw power, just for anyone that isn't following.
We're going to have subtitles on this one. Okay, so we both had that one. But the next one is one that was just on yours.
Yeah, and it's Morphine, Cure for Pain.
Well, this is slightly different.
Oh, man, look, this is... You know, funnily enough, I've chosen this song for the playlist because it's beautiful and I love it. It's not really representative of what a lot of Morphine sounds like. Because for me, but a time when everything I was listening to was pretty much really heavy, either really heavy or hip-hop.
Yes.
This just had this fucking low slung call to it. This is big, dirty bass grooves, big bass heavy with Mark Sandeman, just insanely cool voice. Live in that same kind of territory, that smoky, kind of whiskey drenched. Yeah. Got that same kind of vibe as Afghan Wigs, but I mean, I'd probably be less worried about him dating my daughter.
No, it's very, that's a good point.
It's just the sound of Smoky Rooms, as I say. It's the sound of regret and whiskey and endless nights and not learning your lessons, right? Also, more than anything, it makes the sax endlessly cool, this record.
Right, sure.
There is so much cool saxophone on this record, and not some of the sax solos that we've dealt with over the
which
years.
I do love, but yeah, we will admit they're cheesy.
But mate, this, if you've never heard Morphine and you've got some space in your life for that kind of like dirty, sexy kind of, it's not funky, it's just kind of gritty. I don't know. I don't really know the best way to describe it, but it's just endlessly cool, this record.
Would you say that Cure for Pain, this album, is kind of the entry point for people if they haven't heard Morphine?
I think you can. The thing about Morphine is I think you can enter pretty much anywhere.
Okay.
I would say Yes and Cure for Pain are probably the two of the more accessible.
Yep.
Easily. I think Like Swimming is maybe a little deeper in cuts. I don't know, but I mean, they've got a sound. They do a thing. They do it really, really well. What you're hearing at the minute is them being reflective and sad and moody.
Right. Yeah,
a lot of the stuff is a lot more kind of upbeat.
This is kind of the sunrise as opposed to the dirty nights
exactly
before.
That.
Right,
yeah,
sure.
Exactly that. But yeah, I think this album. I mean, I love Morphine dearly. I think they're.
And the band.
Yay! Hey. One of my favourite bands of all time. Never got to see them fully live.
You didn't get the chance because, obviously...
Well, I had a ticket and he died.
That's what it was. It was that
but
timing.
They all used to play in a bar in Boston and come on, get different singers to come up and do bits and pieces.
Yep.
And when I was in Boston a few years ago, my cousin Megan took me to see that, and it was fucking glorious.
Was it? Yeah.
Oh, it's great, man. It was just
brilliant.
Different singers coming. It was like a real jet, like different members of changing hands. Just the songs. It was great. You know, yeah. Just obviously like people that they knew. They apparently did it every week, just in this big kind of Irish bar in Boston.
That's mad. But it's the songs that you knew and loved.
Yeah.
Brilliant. No, that's fair enough. We didn't have very many people on the on Twitter and Facebook who included this in their albums. The only one that I found was Stephen McDade. He's got it as his number one. In fact.
Nice, big up, Stephen.
Yeah. So fair play. I'm just thinking, we've done what's that number? That's the fifth one or so we've done. Let's take a little break and have a look at some other stuff that was going on in 1993 because I have made a list.
Of course you have.
Of course I have. I have made a list of the top 10 best-selling albums of 1993.
Nice.
And as you'd expect, mostly terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just shit awful. Can you hazard a guess at what the top one is?
It might have been Meatloaf.
It is.
I thought it was Meatloaf.
It absolutely is Meatloaf. Yes, number one is Meatloaf. Number two is one from the previous year, is R.E.M's On Money for the People.
Yeah,
which
good.
came out October 92,
Good.
but was still the second highest selling album of 1993. Of course, because we've seen it. It's constantly been in the top 10 of every week. Number three.
Deservedly so as well.
Oh, it's absolutely deservedly so. And the thing is, they were releasing singles, obviously, right through the year as well. So it always got a boost.
Yeah.
Every time. Number three is a weird one. Dina Carroll, So Close. It was released in the January of 1993 and never got to number one, which is why we never had to actually listen to it.
Good.
But it has been constantly top 10 the entire time. It just kept selling as well.
I mean, I remember the people that loved this record,
Uh-huh.
and they weren't people I was hanging out with.
Boring, fuck. I don't get it, but it is the number 3 best-selling album of the year. It's fair enough.
It's because Adele didn't exist yet.
Oh, well, that's very true. It needs something to fill the space. Take That is at number 4, even though it only came out in October. But
Unsurprising.
It was so big so quickly. It got to number 4. UB40, Promises and Lies, is number 5, which is just awful.
Let's gloss over that.
Oh, yeah, indeed. Well, and number 6, Phil Collins, both sides. Fucking terrible pairing there.
That is bad.
Number 7 is U2's Zeropa, which we did with Stephen.
I mean,
Stephen Hill.
that's not a record that sold on merit, really. It's a record that sold on
Legacy of
I think it may have showed up in someone's top 10 list that we had. But
I think definitely someone else.
Mike Luttrell, I think, had it.
Right, gotcha. Yes, you're right. Number 8, Mariah Carey's Music Box, best-selling album.
Yeah, well,
I bet you that was even higher up in the States. I reckon that was probably number 1 or 2 in the States.
And I bet it continued to do well the following year as well.
Also true. Number 9, one that only it peaked at number 3 in August of 1993, The Spin Doctors, A Pocket Full of Kryptonite. Number 9th best-selling album of the year.
Fucking hell.
What the hell's gone on?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people that's gone, well, I've bought this one because of this song. I bet it's full of them.
It literally is just that
not.
one song, yeah.
I reckon that's the one that went to landfill most.
Oh, yeah, indeed. Charity shop full of that.
Yeah.
And
Charity shop full of kryptonite.
And then the number 10 is Sting with 10 Summoner's Tales, which only got to number 2, therefore we didn't have to do it in our
Fucking
our
number
run.
2 is right.
Number 2. But yeah, there you go. That's the top
Thank
10.
God we didn't have to do that. Though, having said that, I'd have probably rather done that than the Cliff Richard one.
I'd have rather done that than the Phil Collins and the UB40 one, I reckon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, there you go. It's just a little aside. I thought interesting to see what else was going on.
Yeah, I mean, that's by virtue of what this podcast is. We've had to do most of them.
We really have.
But thank God, not all of them.
I know.
Right, okay, well, let's move to the next one.
This is one that is just on my list. It's not one of yours, and I suspect it just wasn't on your radar at the time. But The Breeders with Last Splash. And this is fantastic. I'm so happy that we did this roundup because I'd almost forgotten how good this was. I liked it at the time, but I was such a huge fan of the previous album.
Sure, I
that
remember you saying.
Pod is one of my favourite albums of the 90s. And so I do remember that at the time I was kind of a little bit sniffy about Last Splash, and also because Cannonball was so everywhere in your face.
So when you said I wasn't aware of this album, I totally was, because Cannonball was...
Oh, yeah, you'd have heard that every week.
If I was going to a club twice a week, I was hearing it twice a week.
Of course.
Possibly more.
Yeah, very true. But because I was a dickhead back then, and so because of that, I probably went, all right, I'm going to not give this the chance it deserves.
Back then?
Well, it's true. I went back and listening to it for this to see, all right, is this going to get in there? How high is it going to be? It is a wonderful album. It really is beautiful. I remember it in my head being a lot more slick than it is. I kind of thought, oh yeah, well, Pod was the one with Albini. He did that production, and then they went all, major label and this sort of stuff. And that's not true. That's not true. That's Cannonball. That is just me remembering Cannonball.
Yeah.
There is so much of the stuff like the song that's playing under us now is "Do You Love Me Now?" The answer, Kim Deal, is yes, I do. It sounds like this. And it's just this lo-fi, scuzzy, dirty, grimy sound, but with great songs.
See, I wouldn't have been ready for this album in 93 because I had my own musical hang-ups, and this would have been... I would have put this in a more indie category.
Sure. Something
more indie than I would listen to, and I probably drew imaginary battle lines in my head based on tribalism.
Totally, yeah, of course.
And, as a result, there are albums like this that I've kind of, an album that's in neither of our lists this time around, that's in quite a lot of the listeners' lists, and it's certainly an honourable mention for me, is like Rid of Me by PJ Harvey.
Of course, yes.
And again, that's an album at the time that was a little bit too indie for me.
Yep.
So I go back to it, and I regret those, because you have those opportunities where I could have gone and seen those bands and understood, But, you go on your own journey, don't you, and you make your own decisions.
Oh, absolutely. And I also imagine that the people you were hanging out with weren't listening to this as well. So it was not like someone was going to go, oh, let's put on the Breeders album.
Yeah.
And so you weren't exposed to it just, by proxy as well. I was, and I liked it back then, but I had diminished it in my memory to an extent. I was like, oh, well, that might make the top 10. It absolutely makes my top 10. I think this is a great album. They could have made it a really overproduced one if they wanted. They could have gone down that direction, but that's not what they do. And so, chuffed to bits that I've got back in my head. I've been just singing some of the songs in my head for days now. It's wonderful. And like you say, we did have a few people on the listeners who had this in their lists. We've got Hugh Davis. He's got a couple other ones that nobody else had. Half Man, Half Biscuit with Liz Len Paul and the Falls Infotainment Scan. He's got a couple of proper, right on the edge of indie stuff in there as well. But he's got the Breeders too. Clifford Norton, our good mate Cliff. He's got Breeders right in the middle of his, as well as things like Mazzy Star and the Swirlies.
The Swirlies?
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard of the Swirlies.
That's we go again. We're just going proper left field indie. And Dorian Rogers has got him in his, as well as things like the Auteurs and American Music Club.
Again, like Rid of Me as well.
Yep, exactly. So definitely some people sharing my love of the Breeders' Last Splash, which is nice.
Lovely stuff. Okay, well, let's now move on to one that we've both got on our list.
Right, yes.
This is... we had quite a few requests to cover this album.
I know.
And I kind of regret that we didn't.
It would have been a fun one to do.
I might spend a little bit of time on this now, but we've got the Judgment Night soundtrack.
Right.
Now, come on. If we just act like you've not heard this, you don't know what it is. Judgment Night soundtrack was a soundtrack put together by a record label for what was a pretty inconsequential action movie. It was like a Dennis Leary vehicle. It's not a very good film. It's a kind of.
I've only seen it once. That was enough.
It's kind of a straight to video type thing. But for some reason, they put together this quite innovative soundtrack.
Yep.
Because at the time, obviously, you got hip hop happening and you've got alternative music happening.
Mm-hmm.
And someone had the idea, let's get artists from this world to collaborate with this world and see what comes out. And what you ended up with was this, a 10, 12 track album. It went out to a lot of people. Some people put demos together and didn't finish the album.
Was there a Tool one?
Tool and Rage Against the Machine did one.
Yep.
You can find a demo version of it on YouTube.
All right. Yep.
It's called You Can Kill the Revolution, but you can't kill the revolutionary.
Right.
And it's got some really good moments in it. It's very much a demo form. You can Liam Maynard kind of scatting his vocals out. It's been put together by demos that people have found and pieced together.
Right, sure.
So it's not intended for listening. It would have been a good track, right? But the thing is, this album as a whole, as high as it is on both of our lists, is a wildly inconsistent album.
It is, but the highs are very high.
And that's the point. Yeah. The highs are... I would say there are 3 or 4 tracks on here that are 3 or 4 of my favourite songs of the 90s.
Just fucking brilliant, yeah.
So, let's start with, some of the less successful stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so you got Slayer and Ice-T.
Yeah. I don't mind that so much.
I don't mind it. They're doing a trio of punk covers.
Yes.
Basically. So it's not Ice-T. For me, what's unsuccessful about it is it breaks the mould.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Ice-T went on to be a metal singer with Body Count.
Yeah.
Had that in his repertoire.
Yeah.
To whatever degree you think he does that well. But it wasn't Slayer putting a song down and Ice-T rapping over it.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Right? So that's why, for me, that is less successful.
Fair enough.
Right?
Yep.
Then you've got Sir Mix-a-Lot with Mudhoney.
Yeah, I see. Again, I don't mind that. I think that's all right.
I think it's fine, but Sir Mix-a-Lot was a Flavour of the Month rapper.
Oh yeah,
and so it's not.
But I enjoy the Mudhoney backing on that one. Yeah.
I mean, I'd say probably the weakest track on there is the Fatal and Therapy track.
That's rubbish.
I mean, I've never heard of Fatal before or since.
Nope. Not a clue. Not a clue.
Yeah, it's not a very good track, that one.
No. And who was what did Della Funky Homo Sapien do one with?
Oh, I like that one.
Who's that with?
That's Dinosaur Jr. It's a really jammy one. I really like that one.
I'm not a fan of that one.
Right.
Right.
I really like the Del flow on that one.
Yeah.
Then you've Me, Myself and My Microphone, Live in Colour and
Run DMC.
Run DMC is rubbish.
That's terrible.
Don't like that one.
That is terrible.
De La Soul and Teenage Fan Club I do like.
That's it. That's okay.
That's a really good. No, I really like that one. That's not pressure on for me.
Okay, and there's 2 Cypress Hill ones.
Yeah, see, and again, I know we disagree on this. I prefer the one that was CD only release, which is The Real Thing, which is the one with Pearl Jam.
Yep.
And then there's the one they did with Sonic Youth, which was I Want to Get High.
I Love You, Mary Jane.
Oh no, I Love You, Mary Jane.
Yeah.
I like them both. I prefer The Real Thing.
Fair enough.
Used to cover that in a band.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I suspect you're the only people on the earth who covered that song.
Probably.
So there are a lot of kind of in the middles. There's a couple of shits. There's a couple in the middles.
Yeah.
But when you get up the other end, like the one we just played was Faith No More and the Booyah Tribe.
Yeah, I mean that is, that's Mike Patton kind of just taking a step back and going, right, I'm not fucking singing. I'm just putting down this really distinctive vocal harmony.
Yep.
Yeah, fucking great. Fucking Gangster Ren from Booyah Tribe just fucking boshing out. You got those big guitars from both bands, that Billy Gould bass on there,
great riffs,
fucking drum beat on it. It's a really well structured song. It fucking hangs together. It's fucking brilliant.
It is
I love it. It's one of my favourite Faith No More songs.
Oh wow, there you go. And so that's the one that you put forward to put onto the playlist. I have gone with the flip side of that single, which is the Just Another Victim track with Helmet and House of Pain.
Yeah, which is great.
Class.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of almost 2 songs. It's almost like two songs welded. It's a cut and shut.
It really is.
And one half of it is better than the other.
Sure.
With Jodie Foster and Harvey Keitel. Looks like I'm walking through a living hell.
Yeah.
But brilliant, man. That's Helmet at the top of it, and one of my favourite Helmet songs.
Yeah.
And when they play that live, it's fucking wonderful.
Yes, right. Yes,
and then Biohazard and Onyx.
With the title track.
The best thing that Biohazard ever did. I saw Biohazard at the Marquee.
Wow.
Yeah. Supported by Clawfinger.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I mean, Biohazard and Onyx. What a track that is. So good.
That's a great pairing. Even if, you just had someone who didn't really know what was going on pairing these people up.
Yeah.
If you just looked at the photos of Biohazard and Onyx, you go, there's some angry men. There's some angry men.
These guys all look like they could have met in prison.
Yeah, exactly.
Where they'd be part of rival factions.
Yeah, it's a great
But what a mosh pit track is. It's kind of quintessential of something that's happening culturally in 1993. No matter how much I go back and I think about that record, and I objectively know that quite a bit of it isn't that good, none of it stops me loving it.
And because it was the first full album that had really been done of that sort of thing, we'd had Run DMC, Aerosmith, we'd had Public Enemy, Anthrax, but this was an entire album of different people doing that. And yeah, it was almost a novelty thing because it was done for a soundtrack, no problem at all, don't care. But it could not have been more up either of our streets had there been a million focus groups just with you and me, and they'd said, what do you want? And we'd gone, well, can you make this happen? Can you put them over there and them over there? It's the most bespoke album for the two of us.
And several years of new metal made a fairly strong case that it can be a very bad idea to mix rap and metal. And the thing is, when you boil both of those genres down to their worst, most wrestling elements, you get
That's
some
a great phrase. Well done.
fucking terrible music.
Sure.
Right? You do that. Like for as much as I have deep love for certain moments of new metal and certain tracks, there is a dirge of shit.
Of course.
Absolute, right? Like fucking turntables and guitars and all of this fucking bullshit, right? But it doesn't stop the fact that the people that were really thinking about it at the start and starting to put these things together, Rage Against the Machine, Downset, there was some really good, interesting stuff that was produced. And like now, I went to see Clipping a few weeks ago.
Of course,
right?
yes.
And Clipping is just walls of industrial noise with an MC over the top of it, basically. Right. If you want to soundbite it down to its, and it is entirely glorious, right? Yeah. And it's most simple. It's rock music and rap music fused together in a very unexpected way, and it's still wonderful. So you as much
when
as you
it
can,
works, it works.
You can make, and it's, if you do it lazily and you do it without imagination, or you do it based entirely on the easiest cliches available, you're going to produce a bucket of shit, right? As Limp Bizkit did multiple times.
Yep.
Still got a ticket to see him next year, but if you do it well, you can really find something. And people are very, very dismissive of it, I think, these days.
Well, maybe they've only heard Crazy Town.
Well, mate, fuck it. Oh, yeah, like, come on. Come, my lady. Come, my lady.
Fucking what?
You're my butterfly.
Sugar baby.
Yeah. Right.
And there was a few people agreed with us in the listeners. 1,000 Albums on Twitter who said he might be bringing the accountant back and starting the blog again.
Good.
Bringing it back next year. He's got a Judgment Night in there, and
bring it back the other way.
Matt Bradley, who gave us a couple of different top fives, sort of like ones he was listening to at the time, and then ones in retrospect. But he's got Judgment Night in his 5 at the time. But then he also has Def Leppard, David Bowie's Black Tie White Noise, and Spin Doctors. So we can't trust him.
We can't trust him for Black Tie White Noise.
That's what he was listening to at the time. So Matt, it was a very, very bad time for everyone.
Yeah.
But also Niall Bakewell from the Zeros podcast. He's given us a top 9 essentially. Number 1 is Fugazi, In on the Kill Taker. Number 2 is Fugazi, In on the Kill Taker. Number 3, 4 and 5 are Fugazi and the Kill Taker, and then he's put 5B Judgment Night.
I tell you, man, like In on the Kill Taker is my most prevalent honourable mention.
It was kind of in and out of your choice.
It was in the list, and I just, truth be told, I had to be honest with myself. I was excluding one record on aesthetic terms.
Yeah, sure.
And I was being like, this is...
You can't pretend, though.
Fucking, I love In on the Kill Taker, man. It's a great record, man. I love it. It's brilliant. It's not my favourite Fugazi album, and it's a lot of people's favourite Fugazi album. Sure. And there was an album that I put in, and I just went, actually, I enjoy that album more, even though it's not as cool. Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
And it was a hard decision. I had to look myself in the eyes, and I had to go, you're not being honest with yourself or your listeners, Dave.
And Ian McKay would want you to be.
Ian McKay would want me to be.
He wouldn't want lies.
I mean, he'd be very upset about this beer.
That's very true. And all the morphine.
Yeah.
Right, well, look, that's kind of the first 7 of the 13 that we're going to go through. So we'll leave it at that. And we'll do part 2, which we'll release as soon as we can after this as well.
Exactly.
But that's the first half. The next one is going to be kind of our... top 4s and top 5s, the really big ones that made our lists.
Thank you for joining us. We will see you in the future.
Lovely stuff. Bye.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Pop Collaborate and Listen. It was produced and edited by us, for which we can only apologise. We are on Twitter at PCL Podcast, on Instagram also at PCL Podcast, and Facebook.com/PCL Podcast. All of these, plus links to our various Spotify playlists, etc., are on our website, which is pclpodcast.com. Please feel free to get in contact via any of the social media or on pclmusicpodcast@gmail.com.